Hey, all, welcome back and welcome to episode 31 of Harrison Talks Pod. On today's show, we kick things off with a little rant about NBA ratings and the narratives around that. And then we are going to dive into our Game 7 reactions of the Nuggets Thunder, where the Thunder move on to play the Timberwolves in the conference finals. And we get two exciting conference finals matchups. And no matter what, we get a brand new young star with a ring this season, and why I'm so excited about that. Then, unfortunately, we have to talk a little bit about the CBA, about teams that are no longer in the playoffs. We have to talk about also the Celtics, Tatum's injury, and how the CBA kind of amplifies all of that as well. Then we're going to do a fun segment that we're going to title something called Mid Level Money Moves and the Austin Reaves Dilemma, where we discuss some mid level players around the league and whether the Lakers should cash in on Austin Reaves' contract now and go out and get a center or whatever it might be. And then lastly, we'll end with Cavs and Bucks. As I mentioned, two teams that are now out and what they should do looking into this off season. So, hey, I'm so happy you guys are here. If you've been following for a while, thank you so much. If it's your first time here, thanks for joining me. I'm just so happy we get a couple of days of break in between just so I can catch up, record this episode, and keep things a little bit relevant as we go forward. So, hey, let's get into it. All right, I tried to make the intro as energized as possible and positive as possible. So let's get kind of into the more negative and parts that I'm going to complain because, hey, that's what I'd like to do sometimes. First of all, can we make a deal for game 7 of where it's never on an afternoon, Sunday afternoon? It really doesn't matter to me, but in the afternoon, why is there a game 7? Again, I've talked about it on here. I can't imagine that there's teams that enjoy it. Like, oh, great, I get to get my game 7 done early and, head on home or head to Cancun, depending on what's going on. And it just doesn't make sense ever. Like the TV deals, I mean, if it was up to me, of course, we would not have afternoon games ever, including during the NFL season. But at least during the NFL season and early on in the NBA season, it makes some sort of justification to that. So that's all I'm gonna say. It was 2:30 a.m. my time. I stayed awake. I just did whatever work or video games I could to, and then of course it doesn't start until 2:45, and then I gotta sit through all of this halftime, and oh man, it was rough. But I will get into my reactions overall in this next segment because I'm not done with this rant just yet. Um, I've been seeing a lot of discourse, especially this week, in the past couple of weeks, and the most important part is that I need to stay away from the social media part of it. But I think sometimes, and I've been seeing this, it feels like amped up more since we got back from COVID, of where people just want something to complain about. And for some reason, it's often sports. And then if you're somewhat a fan or a fan of the NBA, it's the NBA. And of course, I'm taking this opportunity to complain about those people. So it's just this big winding road that we are on. Yeah, I mean, think back to 5 years ago when we did not have any sports or any basketball. And think about the parity that we've had in the NBA since 2019, of where we haven't had any repeat champions. Sure, we've had teams like the Lakers, the Warriors, the Celtics, teams that you commonly see in the finals and win championships. But there hasn't been anything repeat, nothing like we saw in the 2010s or this decade has just been different so far. Again, it seems like, and perhaps this is just something that people enjoy doing, uh, if it's like this, where we have four teams, small market, all led by exciting young superstars, which might not be as relevant to a casual fan or recognizable like Anthony Edwards was in an Adam Sandler movie, but beyond that, or has he been on any kind of late night shows? I'm not even sure. Then people complain that it's boring in that way because they don't see the big stars on the big stage all the time. Yet when we've had other years where it has been the Celtics, it has been the Warriors, the Lakers, the KDs, the Steph Currys, the LeBrons, then it's feels like the opposite of where, oh, it's always the same thing and it's boring. And then mm, it seems like we talk about TV ratings. First of all, it's 2025. I understand that we still watch the long form content on TV, yet I never really see T ratings get brought up unless it's to justify some sort of narrative, either positive or negative. So, if you like the NBA and the ratings are good, then you can use it. If you are not a fan of of modern NBA, then you can use bad TV ratings. But it seems like something that is quite weird to bring up just in general sometimes, and less and less relevant as it goes on. With that being said, we know that these playoffs and these finals are going to have low ratings, and we know the talks that are going to come out about this. In the off season, I want to do a whole episode on my thoughts on how the NBA can change that product to make the overall playoffs better, no matter what sort of outcome we are looking at. Popular team, small market, big market, whatever it might be. So, seeing casual fans get to see more new stars on the big stage is going to be great. NBA needs to cater to those casual fans because they are the majority, of course. And I hope that if you're someone like that, I mean, for me, I feel like I'm just whatever next step above casual fan is, like someone who watches NBA every day and then sometimes chooses to talk about it. Although that last part doesn't matter at all whatsoever. As someone who pays attention, I hope that you get to see some stars and you're going to see a lot of other role players step up on both ends of the court, and hopefully they get their exposure during these final playoff runs as well. So, okay, I'm kind of wearing down now. Um, and here's my last opinion, my last take. Find, if you have found these playoffs, or just if you're gonna find the rest of these playoffs to be boring, I really just don't know what to tell you. I think, uh, beyond the injuries, which are horrible, which again, we'll talk about how the league could probably make all of that a bit better with consistency. These matchups have been great. The defense has been great. In a lot of ways, the defense has been the best part of these playoffs. So, hey, if you're an old school guy and you're saying, "Oh, in the NBA, all it is just flops and all of that," it's not. It's really not. And if you're tired of seeing people like Steph and LeBron, then hop on and check out a Midwest team, perhaps one of those. So, okay, that's it. I'll come back and let's talk some real basketball about Game 7. So, as I mentioned, Sunday afternoon, I guess they think that's a perfect time for a Game 7. At least we had a game on a Sunday. It just just put it in the evening. They're going to have a 3-day break, or I mean, they would have a 2.5-day break even if they put it at the night. Whatever. I think that's good enough. It turned out to be a blowout, pretty much 125 to 93. The first quarter looked like it could be close. And my overall thoughts, with that being said, is that I think the Nuggets played just about as good as they could have with the hand they were dealt, with Aaron Gordon not being completely healthy. Uh, Looked like he was playing some really strong old man ball in the beginning. Was at one point had more rebounds than the entire Thunder team. Was making some cuts to the basket. Jokic just makes everyone look better. Makes decent players look great, make great players look even better. Just I can go on and on about it. Thunder had 30 over 30 open threes and shot almost 50% from three. And the spacing was just uh, for Denver just an issue just in general. So for 14 games that the Nuggets had, and going up against a younger Thunder team, going 7 games, and even I think coming out of the gate looking like you had a chance to win this game is very impressive in my mind. And I've said it last week. I most likely said it the week before. The Thunder's defense and depth is by far the most impressive part of these playoffs. And we've been talking about Thunder's depth all season. And we're talking about the potential of it in previous seasons as well. What was it, 14 players? Garbage time, of course, but playing 11 players 7 minutes or more. And they have so many players at the end of their bench where it just making the matchups look like when we look ahead to the matchups against the Timberwolves, I think we have to give the edge to the Thunder, but I wouldn't go as far as maybe what the odds are telling us. I think the Timberwolves have been great and have shown they can be competitive, but um on paper, throughout the season, OKC has been better, and they're going to have a lot more lineups and rotations to throw at a Timberwolves team, which is solid defensively. There were questions about OKC and players like Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren, and maybe not having that for sure solid second option next to SGA. But Jalen Williams had a very nice game 7, so there might be a little bit of easing off of that as well. And the depth of OKC just continues to get more and more impressive. With Alex Caruso coming in the first quarter, Chet Holmgren had a rough game 7, I would say. Had some really nice highlights, but just struggled against Jokic more than what you would probably want in that matchup. But considering that you have playing only 7 minutes in this game and being pretty much your third option at center, but then right away in the first quarter going smaller because Chet Holmgren was still on the floor, but putting Alex Caruso on Jokic. And Alex Caruso in over 12 minutes matched up against Jokic, 4 for 12, and had 4 turnovers against him. So for someone who is, I don't know, 6 inches shorter than him, maybe, I don't know, 80 whatever pounds lighter than Jokic, what else could you really ask for? So that was for sure one of the most entertaining parts of this game and just this series in general. So what else for the Nuggets now that they're done? We mentioned Aaron Gordon, hamstring injury. Apparently, Jokic told him to not play in the game to risk other injuries, and ended with 8 points, 11 rebounds on 24 minutes, was a -9 with him on the floor, did as much as he could, and the spacing was just an issue in general. Michael Porter Jr. was very inconsistent throughout all of these playoffs, and it was for sure more negative than positive in this series. Christian Braun, though, it has been amazing to watch his growth throughout this season, and it's just amplified so much when he's playing a two-man game with Jokic. Had 9 points in the first quarter of this game, ended with 19 points in this game, averaged 12.1, 6.7, 3.3 assists in this series, and in the last game, in game 6, had 23 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 steals. So just has to be one of the most improved players throughout the league, and one of the positives that we can talk about on this Nuggets team. So, uh, 4 teams left, all small market. Well, no, I keep saying that. Knicks are huge market, but anyways, younger team that hasn't won in a really, really long time. So whatever. So let's see. Jalen Brunson on the Knicks, 28. If you want to include Karl-Anthony Towns, we have uh, Anthony Edwards for the Timberwolves, 23. Tyrese Halliburton, 25, and SGA is 26. I believe that's right. So we have 4 or 5 stars, all between the ages of 23 and 28 or 29. And yeah, unless you are some kind of hometown fan, how can you not be excited to know that at least one of these guys is getting a ring? At least one of these guys this summer. We're gonna see Anthony Edwards at a parade, or we're gonna see Halliburton, or we're gonna see Brunson. Imagine if the Knicks won finally, and then his whole history with his father and him being from that hometown. There's so many cool storylines. I know I keep going back to it, but it's true. So, is is this year perhaps more of the same and more of the normal, with a new CBA coming up, and the fact that we have not had a repeat NBA champion since 2018? Or is this a legit change of the guard considering everything? 40-year-old LeBron, Warriors most likely being done at this point, all the other things that are happening in the league. So for payroll, let's talk about 2 teams here that are now out, Nuggets and Celtics. Nuggets are committed to just about 190 next season. I believe they are just under second. They're just under the cap. They're under second apron, of course. Buyout market was not used by them, and the biggest conundrum most likely is Michael Porter Jr., who is owed $38 million next year. And if you look to trade off of him, it's kind of hard to say what you can get with the limited flexibility you will have. So the Nuggets are in a unique situation, maybe not completely unique, thinking about players like Giannis, but there's no other franchise that has a superstar player, this good, but at the same time is assumingly this hands off when it comes to these things. And it's hard to say what Jokic will be motivated by, given that he doesn't say much, seems comfortable, has won a championship recently, has gotten all the accolades, might get MVP this season, but at some point, does he become more vocal and Does he become more vocal to the point that we actually know about it? But this team definitely does seem at a crossroads with, having Russell Westbrook on their team, with having superstars that are now older and having the new CBA, which is just going to give them less flexibility overall. As I mentioned, when we think about CBA, there's no more CBA crunch bigger right now than the Celtics. Tatum, Achilles injury, big contract kicking in. Boston is to exceed 500 million total next year with salary cap and penalties. They are 73 million over cap. Is that right? 20 million over the second tax apron. So overall, it's about 500 million that they're going to owe next season, with their number one player most likely out the entire season, and some unanswered questions with Jalen Brown. Did he get hurt, or was he hurt into the playoffs? But you have to think about what you do with Jalen Brown possibly, because with the new CBA, it's hard to tell whether you can realistically retain both players. And I know Boston fans want to keep them together for as long as possible. But of course, you could keep them together. Is it worth it overall with having a CBA that pretty much gives you a hard cap and very, very little flexibility if you spend a certain amount of money? So, does it pressure Boston's timeline knowing that next season might just not be a competitive season for them, while you're also spending all this money on top of it? How patient are the Celtics going to be? I'm not really sure what the Celtics do this offseason, or if they try to make any big trades this offseason. The timeline is very unknown. It's hard to get into the front office's minds about that. With them being above the second apron, they're going to be very limited if they want to make a trade, whether it's Jalen Brown, whether it's Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, who's owed 30 million next season. Who would you get for them? And also, you're very limited as far as what you can put out and take back with these new CBA limitations. And what are they on for next season? For 2026, they're at 207 million currently, and that is getting Kristaps Porzingis off the books, so on, so on. So they do over second apron even following this season, which would mean that their 2033 pick would be potentially frozen. Whether that matters in the grand scheme of things, I know there's a lot more focus on other big parts, other big moving parts. So that's the Celtics part for you. And to finish off this segment, the most positive that I can is OKC is clearly set up for this, the best out of anyone in the league. But they do have decisions to make with Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren being on the last years of their team options. And of course, they have outstanding draft capital. So, at what point do they make moves? Because they will be, I'm sure they will be an apron team and they will eventually have to spend, but do they lock in with their core now? And what do they do with all those draft picks? Because you have to decide how you're going to spend the money overall. So, I'm not a betting guy. I haven't looked at odds for Thunder Timberwolves. I know Thunder have to be favorites, and I would bet that they are. I would bet on the betting odds that they are favorites by quite a bit. Gonna give Timberwolves a chance. Don't think it's a sweep. I'll say Thunder in 6 games. And of course, a huge matchup between SG and Ant, the two big young superstars. Look to see if Chet Holmgren can have a big series against Rudy Gobert. Yeah, let's see what happens, and it should be a playoff chess match between Dignault and Chris Finch. If you're a betting person, I would say bet the unders. It should be a great defensive matchup. All right, let's move into our next fun segment now. So this off season, I'm sure I'll have plenty of podcast episodes where we discuss how teams throughout the league could possibly solve problems and different fun or creative ways that teams could solve problems, or two teams could make a trade to solve two different problems together. Who knows? So let's talk about one of those teams now. Team that we talk about a lot, that is talked about in the media all the time. That's the Lakers. And their problem is they cannot run the same team back next year and expect different results. A team that has more talent than almost any other team out there, of course, with LeBron and Luca. Is there going to be silly talks about LeBron this offseason? I mean, $53 million player option, Suns on the team, have a top 5 player on your team. I'm sure there'll be posts about it, whatever. But, anyways, why the Lakers need to trade Austin Reaves? They are potentially a second apron team next season. Player options include LeBron James, 52.6, Dorian Finney-Smith at 15.4. Only team option is Jordan Goodwin, and off the books is Markieff Morris and Jackson Hayes. Austin Reaves, and we've known this since he signed his contract, has one of the best team-friendly contracts in the league, making $14 million next season and a player option for 14.8 in 2026. So we knew the moment that he signed this contract that there wasn't going to be a lot of protections for him if the Lakers want to trade him, because he's super good. I can't believe offensively how good he's gotten, and has certainly made progress physically, but it's just not what the Lakers are going to need, especially when you look at the juggernaut of Western Conference teams. And oh God, is Giannis going to come to the West? Then who knows, right? But clearly they were hurt with losing that Mark Williams trade. And if they want to go out and shop for a center this offseason, I think it's got to be Austin Reaves at the forefront of that. It could be other role players. It could going to be draft picks, but they don't really. Do they have? I guess they have 2032. I don't know, but he is going to be for sure the best option for them. And again, you tried it in the playoffs, you couldn't get past the first round, it didn't work, and you do not want to run it back with year 23 LeBron and just the same team. So that's it. Again, they're going to be affected by this new CBA. They're going to be very limited as far as what they can put out and take in with a trade, but they do have a good asset, and I am expecting them for sure to make some sort of trade this offseason. If they do not pick up a center through a trade, I would be very, very surprised. And I guess there are other options for Reaves if it wasn't a center, or it wasn't based around just one player in general. It would be perhaps two depth players that make somewhere around the mid-level exception. Uh, Not sure who that would be just yet, but we can speculate later. just a little preview for this offseason, looking at the limitations that a lot of these teams are going to have, looking at which teams might be regretting the decision of this new CBA, and how do teams fix problems without doing the same problems over and over again. So let's end by talking about the other two teams that are now out, which are the Cavaliers and the Bucks. So the Cavaliers, historic regular season and did not make it past second round, brings up a lot of questions that, of course, might not be talking about if they went all the way to the finals or if they won the finals. So basically, a very, very top heavy team, talented, but has glaring issues that were made evident during the playoffs. Top heavy, 217 million in payroll for next season, mostly among 7 players. Got other players like Dean Wade or that's about it. But 217 million, and they are still going to have to fill in room in their lineup for next season, and that's just running the same team back that was very, very good in the regular season, but had a lot of issues winning games in the postseason. So, what do they do? Do they fix the redundancy with having Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell? His contract jumps from 11 million this season to 46.3 next season, 50 million the year after that. Of course, you want to hold on to him. He's on contract until 2030, but where do you go from here? Do you try to get off of Mitchell's deal? And like all the other teams that we've talked about pretty much as a second apron team, uh, with Mitchell on contract for 46 million, it's very limited as far as who you could possibly trade for. So, over $200 million in new obligations starting next season for this team. Mitchell is eligible for a new extension starting next season. He will be eligible for that new player option. Garland still has a pretty strong trade value, making 39 million next season in on contract through 2028. They definitely have options as far as what this team can do. I just don't know yet. It's unfortunate too, because of course we want the regular season to matter. But in the end, this is what happened, and I'm kind of just being blank about what this team does to move forward and to improve. To keep in mind that this team could improve and win 82 games in the regular season, and we're still going to have doubts about this team going into the postseason, if nothing changes. And last is Milwaukee Bucks. Of course, Lillard will be out all next season, most likely all next season. Uh, had a player option last season and will have his 2-year extension starting next season. So, yeah. Players with Achilles injuries starting new contracts, new extensions in the league. 54 million, identical dollar for dollar with Giannis's deal, and Giannis player option in 2027, Lillard player option in 2026, which I'm sure he will take. And beyond that, Kyle Kuzma on contract through 2027. Portis, Connaughton, Kevin Porter Jr. all have player options next season. Milwaukee is on the books for 164 million under the second apron, under the cap, but that is with Brook Lopez coming off of their books as well. So, a team that certainly lacks depth has money to spend, and by the time they spend that money, will not have a lot of options left. So, I guess to be boring, it kind of relies on what Giannis wants to do, right? And it's kind of uncertain how much of it gets played up by the media overall, whether he's being anxious, whether he's saying anything. And I wanted to include this part because overall, I, this is kind of a rare occasion where I want to say I hope Giannis stays in the East because I'm worried, honestly. When LeBron went to in 2018, I was so excited about it because it's like, oh, like all these matchups that we only see twice with LeBron, we'll see four times. But if Giannis leaves the East, the West is going to be even better, which is fine. But it's going to be even more clear what the better conference is with Jason Tatum being out next season and whatever else. So that's what I want to say. And if he goes to a team like the Rockets, no, absolutely not. I'll be excited to see it and expect more madness and craziness and more unknowns that were going to happen throughout the league. And hey, Cooper Flag is going to be a Dallas Maverick, of course. So that's it for this week's episode. Like, subscribe, do all the YouTube things. If you enjoyed this podcast, share it with someone who else that enjoys NBA and NBA podcasts because we are small, we're growing organically, and I appreciate your time so, so much. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your NBA playoff basketball, and I will see you next time.